The more that I've done the whole scientific game and been part of the effort, the more that I understand how the sausage is made, and the more disillusioned I get with it. It's I used to have this sort of envisioned idea that if I simply just worked and I did a good job, I treated people nicely, I did everything that I was supposed to do, that it would work out. And it was a very naive perspective from my angle. Now that I've realized I had various different things happen in different ways, I realized like how often political or finicky or um, fickle everything actually is, from how the results are presented to various different relationships, to how people get jobs, to um, just the whole aspect of it. It is stubbornly often very unfair. um, it's often it's it's often not what you thought it would be. Now, I'm choosing my words because I don't want to out anybody, or you know um, I still have to work in this profession, but I just want to sort of point out that the process is not what you think it is. It is far different than the imagine that you simply just have to work and things will come together. Um, there's far more nuance than you'd ever imagine. And there's a tremendous amount of, things like loneliness and stuff like that you have to deal with. Um, and you could be a very nice, well intentioned person. You're trying to do your best, but it very often will not work out for you. And there's very little rhyme or reason for this. Um, and you have to somewhat accept it to move on, and to say, um, you're okay, but you have to accept that there is more to the story, and many things that are outside of your control, many people and uh, settings, contexts that are full of nuance. Um, and I want you just to like know this going into it, know that there is so much to understand, and there's not a lot of predictability with any of it in terms of what happens. There's a sort of belief, and this is why, I rail so much against this sort of belief of, um, this sort of economic logic of you, you just keep honing or working on things, everything's going to work out, right? Like that sort of just just sort of perfect things and work harder and all of that sort of stuff. Um, there's a lot more outside of your control than you'd ever imagine. And the only thing that you can do, if it's outside of your control, is to often accept the sort of craziness of it all. And that what you see, or what people often present in the scientific game, is not what happens. Um, the stories that are told are stories, they're narratives. And I want you to realize this coming into it, is that the best way to understand science is more through a narrative lens or a storytelling lens, um, that is often vastly unfair and nonsensical. The idea that things are orderly, scientific, free of bias and all of that kind of stuff is just complete nonsense. Um, the best thing that you can do when you're in it is to disassociate as much as you can. Like do things that are not about it, and the sort of perfection of it and all of that kind of stuff, so that you can escape and do okay every day. And I think if you do that on a regular basis, you can deal with all of the stress and demands and things like that happen, and the sort of crazy making aspect of it. Um, and you can walk forward every day. I think if you do that, and you think that there is no, like, stop believing in this sort of, the more that you put in, the better off you get out of it kind of idea of it, and start believing that it's narrative, it's chance, it's silly, goofy things that happen. And the more that you realize it's that, and often, like, other things like charisma and all these kind of things that are often outside of one's control. Um, Once you imagine it as a world like that, as kind of a much more about, loosely, I don't want to use this sort of term sort of lightly because I know people would interpret it the wrong way. It's a political process, right? I'm using this very, very loosely in the sense to sort of reflect that there's a lot more to the story than simply do good work. And you have to figure out how to deal with that on a daily basis. And man, is it ever difficult to figure out how to do that, so that you can actually look yourself in the face and say that you're a good person and you did everything right, and you put in good effort and all that kind of stuff. That's very difficult. And the only way that I know to deal with it is to disassociate every day. A little bit, maybe it's a lot, but figure out a way to remove yourself from all of it. All right, take care and have a wonderful day.